Hello and welcome to the Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friend. If you've been looking for a podcast geared towards your growth, self-awareness, navigating your brain's daily mind drama, and deep inner work to become your highest and best self, you are in the perfect place. Let's get started. Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. This is late, but better late than never. I have been recovering the last few days from my trip to Austin, Texas, which I'm going to tell you all about because today's episode is actually going to be called Life is 50-50, and I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like. You all might get some laughs on my expense or at my expense, which is totally fine. It was quite the week, both great and both, oh my God, is this really happening? And so I'm going to tell you all about it, okay? Now, before we do that, I do want to remind you that the Equipped Parent Masterclass is happening on April 14th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you're not in that Facebook group yet, you can click the show notes and get taken to the place where you'll need to request. And then tomorrow, I'm going to be letting everybody in later on in the afternoon. And at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I am going to be going live on Facebook to teach you all of the things. You do not have to be a parent to be in there. Your kids can be grown and out of the house. It doesn't matter. It's really open to everyone. That was just the name that felt right based on the content that I'm going to be teaching. Okay, so are you all ready to hear my craziness that happened in Austin or happened leading up to Austin and after Austin? You guys, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. I actually had to take notes so that I remember every single thing. But I'm going to share what happened. But first, I just want to share with you that life is 50-50. Now, this is a concept that I learned in the life coach school with Brooke Castillo, and I call it in my own work duality. So that's kind of how you'll hear it on like maybe previous episodes of the podcast. And what it means is that you get to experience really great moments in life, but you're also going to experience really shitty moments in life. And there gets to be this 50-50 experience. Now, the reason that learning and applying this concept is so beneficial is because what our brain does is it tries to tell us that we should be happy and positive and excited and all the good emotions all the time. So as soon as we start to feel sad, anxious, depressed, if we start to feel angry or frustrated or any kind of negative emotion, we automatically assume that something's wrong or something's wrong with us. And we really let our negative emotions impact us in this really big way, and we hold on to them and we fester with them, and we don't get the results that we're wanting in our life, not because we're experiencing negative emotions, but because of being unwilling to feel them, use them for knowledge as to what we can do better, and then move on. Like, we're so resistant to the negative emotion because we have this idea that negative emotions are bad. And I just want to offer you that there are no bad emotions. Emotions that you're feeling, even if they're negative, are never bad. Your emotions are there to teach you. Your emotions are there to tell you what's working in your life, what's maybe not working in your life, what you could do better, what you could work on, what you need to heal, what you need to address. And so those negative emotions are really coming up to help you heighten your own self-awareness. But what we tend to do is shame ourselves for feeling those negative emotions, think that something's wrong with us, think that we should feel better now, and then we put all this pressure on ourselves to feel better now. And so we bypass the actual emotion, shove it down as if it doesn't exist, and try to move on in life, which creates this autopilot, disconnected feeling. And I'm actually going to talk about that in the equipped parent. So I'm going to share with you how this can look and that you can still have a great time even when life is offering you a shit sandwich, which is what I was presented with this week. And you can let it completely ruin your whole experience, or you can laugh it off, cry it out, and keep going, which I did a little bit of both. Okay? So here's the story, okay? The first thing that started off on the wrong foot was about 5 days prior to leaving for Austin. So I booked an Airbnb. And I booked an Airbnb for a few different reasons. Everybody was staying at the JW Marriott in Austin, which is a gorgeous hotel. I think it's around like 600 and something a night, or at least it was around the time that I looked at booking options, which I totally could have done. But, if I'm going to do that, I thought about having a roommate and us splitting it. However, I know myself really well. In doing this work for 8 years, personal development for 8 years, coaching for 6, I know myself really, really well. And I become extremely overstimulated at the end of social interaction and events. I just do. I've learned this about myself and I just embrace it. I just need that time to decompress and have silence and recharge because I'm an introvert extrovert. I can be extroverted and love meeting new people and socializing, and I have so much fun. But I reach a plateau where I'm like, okay, I have to go and like take a hot bubble bath, hear my own thoughts, be by myself, sleep in my own energy, like release the energy of all the other people. And so, with that being said, I started looking around for Airbnbs. And the universe definitely had my back. God had my back. And there was an Airbnb that set above basically a bunch of cute restaurants downtown and was literally a 4-minute walk to the JW Marriott. It was literally right down the street. I had to cross two, crosswalks in order to get to the hotel. So it was perfect. It could not have been better. The price was really amazing. It had a big tub. I was just really excited. Well, 5 days before I'm set to leave, I get a message from the host of the Airbnb that says, hey, I just want to let you know that our building is no longer allowing us to do Airbnbs or any kind of like home shares. So let us know if we can refund you your money. Okay. So I see that message and I internally start freaking out because I'm like, oh my gosh, my week cannot be starting like this. And no, I cannot have that happening because there are no more rooms at the hotel. There hadn't been for months. Like we sold it out very quickly. And I really didn't want to have a roommate. I knew that it could be an option, but I really didn't want to have a roommate. So I messaged her back and I was like, oh gosh, please tell me what I need to do. I really need to keep my reservation. Everything's sold out all around and that's really, really close. So I feel safe being by myself. Let me know what I need to do. So basically she messaged me back and she said, listen, there's just some discretion that'll need to happen. If anybody comes by my place and ask who you are, just basically say that you're a friend. And I was like, oh, okay, totally. I get it. I get the code. I will do that. It's totally fine. I'll be the friend so that I can keep my Airbnb. So that was the first scare, which was kind of like, well, I was set to leave for Wednesday and arrive Wednesday. So that way I had plenty of time to like get in my Airbnb, decompress, walk over to the hotel and pre-register because the event was starting Thursday morning at 9 a.m. So I thought, this is perfect. My flight is going to get me there Wednesday at 10 a.m. And I even thought about like, I might book a massage. I might book a nice dinner by myself, like for a nice sushi date or something. And something in my soul was just like, don't worry about it. Like just play it by ear and just go with the flow whenever you do get there Wednesday. Maybe you can even meet some people who are already there and go to lunch with them. So I didn't book anything. Well, before my flight even leaves, days before, my dog ends up sick. Now, this stresses me out a lot because I hate leaving my husband with the dog being sick because my husband also works long hours. So I didn't want to leave my dog with him being super sick. And when I say super sick, I mean that he was like vomiting blood. So I had called our vet that he always saw in Kentucky, and I'm asking them like, should I be totally freaked out? Like I'm totally freaked out. I'm afraid to leave him because I don't know if he's okay. He's not acting normal. And so I don't know if he got into something or what exactly it was, but he was really sick, and so that stressed me out. Then, like 2 days before we're leaving, my neighbor, keep in mind we live in a tiny, like less than 800 square foot apartment, which has been for the most part fine. But we have a set of neighbors, and this neighbor, I do not know what the deal is, but he comes outside and loses his cookies way more often than I like. I do not I do not do well with anything throw uppy. In fact, it's a phobia of mine. I think I've talked about it on the podcast. I legitimately have a nervous breakdown. And so you're probably thinking like, how did you work with kids and how in the world are you going to have kids? And the answer to those questions are I really don't know. But when it comes to kids, I handle it way better than with grown ass adults. I just can't handle it. My nervous system literally freaks out. So my neighbor, I'm sitting on my computer. It's quiet in the room. Like there's the TV on, I think. My husband and I were like working on something on our computers, and the neighbor comes out and loses his cookies all over, like just over and over and over again. And I hate the sound. So that's what sends my nervous system into like a total panic attack. It's really annoying. If I could change anything about myself, it would be this phobia. And trust me, I have actually gone and tried to get help for it and all the things. So if you're going to message me like, "Hey, I think this thing would help you." I've done a lot of the things, and it just for some reason I've been this way since I was like 2 years old. And it just scares me. It sends my nervous system just into a panic attack. So he goes and loses his cookies all over the place. And my husband's like, "Oh, I was wondering if you heard that." And I'm like, "Of course I heard it. I tried to get up and distract myself from it, and I'm not going to live here anymore." So I immediately was triggered, and I'm like, "I'm not living here anymore. This keeps happening, and I'm not doing it." Well, then we had to go outside and walk my dog and literally step over piles of his vomit. When I tell you I am done being here and living here, not in Vegas, but like at this complex with these neighbors, I am done. DONE, done. And I literally came back inside from walking the dog, put in my earplugs, and started looking at places to live. And my husband's like, "Was that the total trigger? Like we're never going to be able to renew at this apartment, are we?" And I'm like, "I am legitimately done. Like I'm telling you now, we're not living here anymore. I'm super done." So that was the next thing. So then let's see, it was Tuesday night. I was set to leave Wednesday morning, early in the morning at like 6 a.m. My husband and I decided we were going to get dinner, and then I was going to come back and finish packing my bags, and then we were going to get a few hours of sleep before he had to get me at the airport, which would have been around 4 a.m. Well, around 8 or 9 p.m., I get a text message from Spirit Airlines because the flights were just really affordable to get to Austin. Literally, like, I think $34. And I was like, "Oh my God, you can't beat that. That's amazing." And I fly them all the time to go home to Louisville. I've never had an issue. In fact, I've never ever had a flight delayed or canceled. I guess I've been really lucky that in my life of travel, I've just never had that happen. So I get this text message and it says, "Hey, your flight's been canceled. Stay tuned for further instruction in your email." So I look at my husband and I'm like, "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." And he says, "What?" I said, "My flight just got canceled." And he goes, "No, you're joking." I said, "No, I'm not joking." Like, first it's the Airbnb trying to cancel my reservation, then it's the sick dog, then it's the disgusting neighbor losing his cookies everywhere, and now my flight's canceled. So I waited for probably like 2 to 3 hours for them to send this email about what I should do next, like what my rebooking options were, if they were going to honor the price I already paid. Nothing ever came through. So I finally get on customer service. I'm on the phone for an hour, and finally she's like, "I can rebook you, but we're not leaving until Thursday morning at 6 a.m. So basically a whole 24 hours later. In which case, by the time that I arrive and would arrive that Thursday, I would have missed part of the coaching mastermind because it started at 9 a.m. and my plane wasn't set to arrive until 10:30 a.m. But for the price that I paid, which was $34, I knew I couldn't get another flight at that amount, so I just had them rebook me and had my fingers crossed. Okay, so fast forward Thursday, I get dropped off at the airport by my husband. I'm like, please say a prayer that it doesn't get canceled. Get on the flight, no issues. Okay, we're almost to Austin, and I hear over the intercom, can anybody help? Can anybody help? Please come to the front if you're a doctor, if you're a nurse, if you're in the medical field. Can you please come up front with the flight attendants? So apparently, someone on the plane started having a medical emergency, and the flight attendants were asking for someone to come up front to tend to this person on the flight. So then my brain was like, oh my God, we're going to have to do an emergency landing and we're going to have to turn this flight around. So I'm in the back listening to a podcast, praying with my headphones in, like, please, please don't let us, like, we're almost there. Like, we were, I think, like 40 minutes away from landing. So I'm like, please do not let us have to turn around or stall any longer. I'm already running late for the mastermind. Oh gosh. So anyways, we didn't have to turn around. There was a nurse on board. She helped out the patient with whatever their emergency was, and we landed. So I call my car to come get me, and that took, of course, longer than expected. So meanwhile, I'm talking to the girls that I did my life coaching certification with and asking them to like save me a seat. And then I realized my car is running so late to pick me up and keeps like calling me, and the call keeps dropping, and then she's texting me and like, I'm going to be there in 10 minutes, but it was really like 25 minutes. And so I end up telling the girls, like, you know what? Don't even worry about saving me a seat. I'm probably not even going to be able to make it until 12, which is when the event breaks for lunch from 12 to 2. So I'm like, I'll catch up with you. I might be able to make a little bit of the mastermind once I get to my Airbnb. Ha ha ha. Let me just say, that's hilarious thinking, because whenever I got to the Airbnb, the little system that they use for you to access the building through your phone, good old technology, did not work. So I reach out to the host and I'm like, listen, this isn't working. I keep trying. It could be user error, but I've been trying for like 10 minutes and it's not working. So then she was like, okay, no problem. Sometimes it is a little finicky, especially when you first download the app. So here, try this code. Like, I'll actually give you the manual code to type in. So I type in this manual code no less than like 30 times. It's still not working. So I tell her, I'm like, no, it's still not working. So she's like, great, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Just hang tight and I'll come let you in. So, of course, by this point, I just start laughing hysterically to myself while people are passing this, because the Airbnb is like in the middle of downtown Austin. And so people are like, what the heck? Like, she can't even get into this building. I just start laughing at this point because I'm like, this has been a week. Like, I just don't understand what is happening, but this has been quite the experience. So it takes her about 25 minutes to get to me, and I realize at this point I'm definitely going to be late. Like, not only did I miss the whole morning of the coaching mastermind, but now I'm probably also going to be late getting to lunch. So she finally comes and she just gives me like a good old fashioned key card to get in, and she's like, just keep this and use this throughout your time, and you should be good to go. So there was a little bit of a learning curve for me because I can sometimes be a little tech illiterate, but I figured it out, and so it was all good. I texted the girls and I'm like, okay, where are you at? I'm coming to get lunch. Okay. Sit down at the restaurant. This was great. I got to meet my classmates I did certification with, and it was just amazing. We had a great conversation. And yet, while we were at lunch, keep in mind our lunch is from 12 to 2. I don't think our waiter came to take our order until like 12:40. Seriously. So I actually had to go and ask someone like, hey, do you know where our waiter is? Because we haven't seen him since like they had first gotten there. And so then it became a running joke like, what in the hell? Like, you need to sage yourself, Macy. You have got to go get some sage and like clear yourself. Like, what is wrong? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. This has been the craziest week of my life. I really don't know what's going on. And you guys know that and I've taught you guys this, you never ask what's going to happen next, because whenever you have the energy of what's going to happen next, you're anticipating that something else is going to go wrong. Now, subconsciously, there might have been a little bit of that in my system at this point, because there had been a lot that was just like going awry, but I was still conscious enough to remember to tell myself, like, don't ask what's going to happen next. Don't say bad things always happen in threes, even though by this point I was way past the three mark. I was just like, it's going to get better. It's going to turn around. Like, I don't know what's happening this week. I do need to find some sage. Like, I don't know what my lesson is here, but clearly I'm attracting all of this for a reason, and I just don't know why. So, anyways, our waiter finally comes and takes our order, but then we didn't get our food until like legitimately probably 35 minutes before we had to go back into the event. So we were just cracking up laughing like, this has got to be a running joke. Anyways, we get to the event. The event's wonderful. It was an emotional experience getting to just meet everybody that you grow such a strong bond with over a screen. And it was inspirational to hear all of the people on stage and sharing their stories, and learning of even like their incomes and just what they've created, and knowing that they started exactly where I was. We all start at the same place, at ground zero, with usually no website, no nothing except for yourself. So to see what all of the coaches before me have built in their years of business, it was really inspirational. And it's great to hear people where it's gone really fast for them, like it's been kind of a faster process. But it's also really great to hear from the people that are what my coach calls a slow burn, because I've been a slow burn. So if you're out there and you are working on a business, or you're building something, or you're going after your dreams, and you just feel like it's taking much longer than you want it to, you might just be a slow burn, meaning that it's taking you a little bit longer to get there, but you're going to get there. And I just want to tell you, me too. Me too. I have met a lot of coaches that are like, oh, my first year in business, I made $400,000 and like all of these amazing things. Or, my first year, I made 50K, and then the second year, I made 150K. And that's not been my experience. Like, my first year as a coach, I was so terrified to tell people that I was a coach that I hid behind my Reiki energy practice, and did a lot of Reiki sessions, and I was coaching during them, but that's mainly what I hid behind, because I was so afraid to tell the world that I wanted to be a life coach. And so at the end of my first year of business, I made a whopping $5,500. And but I was proud of that. I was proud that I created that. Like, that was something that I created from advertising my services, and that I had people that trusted me enough to hire me. That my first year as a coach, I had 2 one-on-one clients for a whole year, and then a bunch of like kind of like a la carte clients. And that got me to $5,500. And so it wasn't $100,000 year, my first year of coaching, but I was still really proud of my 5,500. And then the next year I made like 24,000. And then the next year after that, I made like 33 or 34,000. And then this past year doing my taxes, I realized like I've made over $40,000. In the last 12 months, I've made 46,000. So I'm not rich by any means. And I just told you all of my income information. So I'm not there. I'm not even at the 100K mark yet, but I have no doubt that I'll get there. So the reason that I'm telling you that, because it feels vulnerable, right? I want to be able to say like, oh yeah, I'm a $100,000 coach, or I've made $500,000 this year, or whatever. But the thing about it is, it's like, that's not what matters. Like, when I think of the growth that I've had, it's like, it's a reminder that I've kept going even when it's not going as fast as I want it to go. I've continued to put myself out there. I've continued to market my business. I've continued to show up for my clients. I've continued to invest in my business so that I can be even better for my clients. I'm meeting more and more people. And I shared with you guys, that I had a really great month last month. And that's just from all of the work that's I've been doing for 4 years that is starting to pick up a little bit more speed. But in the world of business, I'm still considered a slow burner or a slow burn, which means that even though I'm putting in a lot of effort and work, it hasn't taken off for me like it does for some people really, really quickly. That isn't a reason to quit or stop or think that something's wrong with you or talk yourself down from doing it. If anything, it's just a matter of just keep going. And what I always remind myself is every year I'm getting better. Every year I'm growing. I've never gone backwards. I'm only ever going up. And so even if it's just a little bit more each year, it's like, it's still a really, really big deal, right? So, I mean, if I look at what I've even made this year, I'm almost to what I made last year. So that's a really big thing. So I kind of got off on a tangent there, but what I want to tell you is that keep going, even if, like, stop comparing yourself to other people's journeys and just keep going. Your journey is yours. So that was really great to like hear from everyone, hear from the people who have done really amazing just starting out, and hearing from the people who are like, I've been at this for 11 years and now I'm on the $1 million stage. And all of these other people, yeah, they got here in 2 to 3 years, but how cool is it that I'm here after 11? And so it's nice to hear from that perspective. So the mastermind itself was amazing. And I had scheduled a dinner for my classmates and I to go right after mastermind to go eat. So we all, well, first of all, they had to wait for me in true Macy fashion this week. They were waiting on me for what felt like 80 hours, which probably really was a good 45 minutes because the elevator line to get to the main floor of the hotel was insane. And silly me did not realize that just around the corner was an escalator. So they kept telling me to take the escalator, but I didn't know where the escalator was, and I didn't want to lose my spot in line because the line was like starting to move. And I thought if I get out of line and then they're like I can't find the escalator or the escalator isn't there. I don't know why I would think that if they told me to take the escalator that it wasn't there. But like my brain was just so afraid to leave the line because I didn't want to have to stand it in again. Like I was already anxious that they were waiting. So anyways, I finally make it down to the lobby. There, one of my classmates was literally like, "Girl, you need a sage stick." And I'm like, "I know." So we walk to dinner, and as we're sitting there, one of my other classmates goes, I wonder if there's a mosquito in here because I keep getting bit. So my brain goes, oh my gosh, now this dinner that I've scheduled, there's a mosquito biting her. Well, then it starts to bite me, right? So we're both putting on our jackets and our sweaters. And I'm like, dang it, I wish I could kill that mosquito. That's so obnoxious. And meanwhile, we're all talking, and I go to take a drink of my literal like $11 glass of champagne. And as I go to, lift it up to my mouth, I see a floating bug in it, only to realize that the mosquito flew into my glass of champagne. And man, we all got a good laugh of that at the table because I'm like, are you kidding me? As I'm like holding it up towards my lip. And they're like, what? And I said, the mosquito. They're like, it's in your champagne, isn't it? I'm like, of course. So they got me taken care of. I got a new glass of champagne. But that was just, it was hilarious. So I go back to my Airbnb that night. I take a hot bubble bath. I try to release the whole week. And then the next day, get ready for the next day of mastermind, which was, again, incredible. I got to meet more people that I didn't get to meet the day before. And I just had a really, really, really great time. So Saturday is when I was set to leave. I was set to leave at, let's see, I think it was, my flight was going to be leaving at 6:45. And it said that boarding started at 6:15. So I needed to get to the airport, I figured around 4 p.m. So I stayed at the Airbnb. They let me do a late checkout, which was really, really nice of them. And I left my Airbnb around 3:30 so I could get to the airport at 4 and have plenty of time to get on my flight. And at 6:10, I decided, like, I'm going to run to the bathroom. I'm going to run to the bathroom real quick because I was in a romper. stupid decision why you would wear a romper when you know you're going to be on a flight back home and you have to completely undress. So if there's any men listening, rompers, are very complicated to get in and out of. You basically have to be butt naked whenever you're using the bathroom because it's a whole piece you have to take off. So I decided like I don't want to have to do shimmy and get fully naked on the plane. So in the plane bathroom of all places. So I'm going to go like hurry up and go tinkle before we board in 5 minutes. So I had been talking to this couple that was also at the mastermind, and I was like, I'm going to go to the bathroom and then I'll come back. Well, I came back and the husband was just kind of shaking his head, and there was a whole long line, which I assumed in that moment the line was like people lining up to board because we were literally about to board. And instead I hear over the speaker the lady say, I'm sorry, but this flight has been canceled. Please go to the Spirit ticket counter and see about your options for rebooking. And everybody starts like screaming and hollering, and they're, having less than emotionally intelligent moments. They're feeling their feelings and letting everybody know how they feel and really, really frustrated, which at this point, I just looked at the guy and I was like, this has to be a joke. And he was like, no. He goes, they really did cancel it like right before you walked up. He said, we all thought they were going to get on the intercom and say, okay, zone 1 boarding. And instead they said, this flight's been canceled. We're really sorry. So then, people are screaming like, why is it canceled? I don't understand. Why is it canceled? And they're giving some people the reason that the weather's bad. But it was literally like 80 degrees and sunny in Austin and 94 degrees and sunny in Vegas. And so nobody was buying it. Anyways, everybody had to rush down to the ticket counter to see about rebooking. And by the time I got there, the line was already really long. And I knew that the rebooking option was going to be a whole 24 hours away because I had already looked at my options on my phone and realized that the flight that they were going to offer was going to be for the next day, which was 24 hours away. And I just felt all of the defeat, but I was trying to keep a positive attitude. So I started looking at my other options, and I realized that there was an American Airlines flight that was leaving 2 hours from that point. So I got out of the Spirit line and I ran down to the American Airlines desk and asked if I could buy that flight. And she told me, she was like, yeah, you all are going to be leaving in about 2 hours. And she goes, so your flight would be $400. Now, keep in mind, I flew down to Austin and was supposed to fly back for a total of like $60. So internally I was really like, even though I had the money, this is where money trauma comes in. So just an FYI, when you're like, listen, you had a huge month last month, what's the deal with paying $400 to get yourself home in 2 hours? And this is where money trauma really does come in because I was raised like, frugal, save your money, don't spend your money on a bunch of things. And like it has always felt like spending money is a bad thing. And so I'm still even working through those wounds. Like I can spend, if someone would have said, hire this coach in this airport for $400 right now to coach you through your thoughts, that wouldn't have even been like, I would have done that in a heartbeat. I have learned to invest in myself and my business like it's nothing. However, when it comes to like buying clothes, buying makeup, buying shoes, buying a flight home, it's so crazy because I really do struggle with it. So like some people in the world will be like, I'm never going to buy coaching. It's too expensive, but they'll spend it on food and they'll spend it on a concert ticket and they'll spend it on clothes. Whereas I'm the opposite. If it's investing in my brain, if it's investing in my growth, I will spend that no problem. But when it comes to like updating my wardrobe, I'm like, oh no, oh no, 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 no. We just have different things that we value. And I questioned whether or not I valued getting home in 2 hours for $400 or waiting 24 hours to essentially have my $8 ticket honored or however much it was. It was under $40. So when she told me 400, that was another thing. She had told me it was going to be $400 to book it with her right there. But when I had found it on Google, It was $300. So she was telling me $100 more. And I even asked her, I said, why is it 400 when on my phone right here, and I showed it to her, it's 300. And she said, oh, because we charge booking fees when you book it at the airport, and you'd have to pay whatever other fees it was. And so I said, well, would it be a problem if I just book it on my phone right here really quick, since it is $100 cheaper? Like, this was me being Miss Frugal little lady here, okay? And she was like, yeah, that's fine, but you do need to have it booked within the next 15 minutes because the gates will be closing for basically for you to buy it since it leaves in 2 hours. And I'm like, okay, so I'm little Miss Speedy Fingers putting in all of my information, putting in my card number. And when I go to hit purchase, it tells me that my card's declined and that the website must be down. And so I'm clicking, I'm clicking, I'm clicking, I'm clicking, I'm refreshing, I'm entering all of the things. And I'm like, can you see if it went through? I for some reason keep getting an error message on my phone saying it's not letting me buy. So tries to look me up and says, oh no, I don't see it. She goes, but I don't see it because it's sold out. She goes, just like that. She goes, the seats are just sold out that quickly. So I, at that point, felt like I was going to cry and was mad at myself for being such a little frugal princess. Because I really, at that moment, realized I really want to go home. And that was the last flight to be able to go home that night. So I was beside myself, to say the least. And then I started feeling all of the negative emotions. So I waltzed my little self down to a seat in the airport, realizing that the Spirit line at this point was triple in size than it was whenever I got in line, and it was barely moving. So I started looking at all of my flight options, and I had this overwhelming sense of like, I just want to go home. I really just want to go home. And this suffocating feeling of like, oh my God, no matter what I do, I can't go home tonight. And it was just this paralyzing feeling. And so for anybody who's ever felt that, like that moment allowed me to find so much compassion for the people who like lose their home, right? Or end up stranded. Or like when you think about the war, like Ukraine, and people having to flee what's safe for them, like it's in those human moments, like when something is so small, because my experience compared to that is so very minimal and not even on the same scale at all. But those moments of frustration when you're really like, God, this is what I really, really want. And you realize that maybe it's not going to happen exactly the way that you want it to, but it is going to happen. You are going to get to go home. Like those are the moments where I really humble myself and really access my highest self and realize that, there are other people that aren't in that position. They aren't that lucky in that moment to be able to be like, I just want to go home. And so I just am, even if it's 24 hours from now. And so those are the pockets that help me build that compassion, that empathy, that understanding. And that is a part of emotional intelligence, is when you can be empathetic, when you can put yourself in someone else's shoes, when you can find compassion for another human being that is maybe having a really hard time. And so sometimes in your own problems and your own pain and your own experiences, whether they are big or small, you can use those moments as very large teaching moments for how blessed you are. And it really helped me see that. But even saying that, it didn't take away my frustration, right? I was still very frustrated. So I realized that there were a few flights going out the next morning. And long story short, it didn't happen this simply, but I found Southwest. I went to the Southwest counter and asked them if I could, purchase a flight. And it basically was the same price. It was going to be $400. And instead of being wishy-washy about it, I immediately was like, yes, just sign me up. It took her probably 20 times of swiping my card for whatever reason for it to work. And she's like, I don't know why it's not working. And at this point, I'm laughing again because I'm like, it's not working because this week has been a week from hell. Like, that's why it's not working. But ultimately, I ended up buying that ticket. And part of why I bought that ticket, I was telling some of the people that were checking on me, they were, because my client, by the way, I got to meet my client, which was, it was so incredible. You might have, seen me talk about it on Instagram. It was so good to meet her in person. And she offered to come get me. She offered to have an Uber come get me. She offered to let me stay the night at her house so that I didn't have to sleep at the airport. And at that point, I was just so exhausted. And I was so afraid that, the flight might cancel again. And then I wouldn't be able to physically go talk to someone about, I need to get home. Like, I really want to get home. How can I get home? But you guys, before I booked the Southwest flight, let me just tell you. Um, so because there were so many cancellations at the Austin airport, turns out Spirit canceled 300 flights just this weekend, just on Saturday. And so did a lot of other airlines. They were delayed and whatnot. There were a lot of issues, and maybe you were even a person like on spring break that had issues. When that happens, like, all the rental cars were sold out because people were like freaking out and wanting to get to their destination. So there literally were no rental cars. And the hotels in the area next to the airport bumped up their prices because of all the cancellations to like $550 per night. So I had to make a decision, and I at first messaged the Airbnb that I had stayed at to ask if I could come back, and they told me that I could, which was really nice, but that I was going to have to pay. And I had this moment of irritation because I had paid for Wednesday night and I didn't even get to stay there Wednesday night because my flight was canceled. Well, I wasn't going to ask them for their money back. They're still a business, right? Like, it wasn't their fault the flight canceled. So I didn't ask for my money back about not being able to stay Wednesday. But when my flight was canceled Saturday and I asked if I could come back to sleep so I didn't have to sleep in the airport and I was going to be charged, I felt all of the emotions. And I was like, never mind, I'll just stay at the airport. So I did. I slept 14 hours. Not slept, but I stayed in the airport for a total of 14 hours before my flight boarded the next day. So that is my story of Austin. And here's what I want to tell you about the Life is 50/50. I had both an incredible week and a shitty week. I had a lot of pockets of horrid, I wouldn't say horrid moments, but just what the F moments. I call it WTF, or yeah, WTF moments. I had a lot of moments like that. And at the same time, I had beautiful experiences. And when I was sitting at the airport feeling sorry for myself, because I definitely had that moment of self pity and self loathing and feeling bad for myself that I, was stranded, which in the greater scheme of things happening in the world is so small. But I still had those emotions. And this is what I'm talking about when I say don't dismiss your emotions. Because a lot of times what people will do is immediately say, well, someone else has it worse somewhere else, and I should just stop. And while that is absolutely true, that doesn't eliminate the feelings that are trying to move through your body and pass. So when you dismiss them and try to be positive Patty instead of fully feeling them, you're actually just storing them for later. It's going to be something you end up clearing out later. So yes, you might be in a better position than other people in the world, but it doesn't mean that you dismiss your feelings and bury them and shove them away. You get to experience them and move forward. You don't have to pretend they don't exist. That's very, very important, okay? So I was feeling my feelings. I cried in the airport. And I thought, how interesting. Earlier today, I was laughing. I was having fun. It was the best day. I went to brunch with two of my classmates that were still there at the time. I got to hang out at the Airbnb and kind of rest and relax. Like, I had a really good day. And now I'm ending my day crying. And this is life. This is duality. You can have a beautiful experience and a horrible experience. And it made me think of my wedding day. I got married on July 3rd of 2018. And my Oma passed away on July 3rd of 2019. So on my 1 year wedding anniversary to my husband, on a day where it was such a great day, the day that we eloped, but 1 year later, I was like watching my Oma take her last breath, who was my best friend in the world. That is 50/50. That is duality. Like, you can be happy and sad all at the same time. I had a mom whenever I was an occupational therapist whose mother, who was her best friend, pass away on the exact same day that her child, one of her children, were born. Can you imagine? That is duality. That is life is 50-50. When you are grieving and saying goodbye to your own mother and birthing your own child into the world. Like, it's the definition of life is 50-50. It's both happy and devastating. And there can be both. Both can exist at the same time. One of the speakers at Mastermind actually shared this, and cried on stage because he was being honored. He was the first man in the room. So keep in mind that this room had 1,500, maybe 1,600 life coaches, all with different niches, all with different expertise, all with different experiences and income levels and all the things. And he was the first man that has ever been honored at the life coach school specifically for making over $1 million. And he said, the life is 50-50 is such a real thing, because when I found out, or when I was getting honored for my $1 million award, as soon as I stepped off of stage after celebrating that $1 million I've made in my business this year, I had a text message saying that they had to put my dog down back home, and I didn't get to say goodbye, and I didn't know it was coming. And so that is duality, right? And I think he had shared something else really personal, but I can't remember what it was. It was something along the lines of another loss on a day where he had met a huge milestone that he had worked for a very long time. So life is 50-50. You're going to have great, good moments, and you're going to have what feels like awful, horrible moments. And sometimes they both exist in the same week. Sometimes they both exist in the same day. Sometimes they both exist in the same hour. And nothing has gone wrong. You're not supposed to have life where it's always 100% happy. It just isn't realistic. It's not realistic to believe that you're supposed to be positive and happy all the time. You're going to have down moments, and it's about what you do in those down moments. Do you feel it? Do you allow yourself to have that human experience, or are you shaming yourself thinking you should be in a different place than where you are? It's okay to feel your feelings. It's necessary to feel your feelings. Okay? So if you're going through something really hard right now, just know that at any given moment it can flip, and you can be on the other side of the 50-50. And it'll be amazing and wonderful. And then it might flip again. And it's okay. Allow yourself to experience the duality of life and experience both, and know that it's all going to be okay. All right? So that was my week in Austin. It was quite the time. Can you believe it? All of those things. So I got to go laugh. I got to go cry. And I came home to my husband having incense burning in our house. I still need to sage myself. I probably am going to do that. But yeah, life can throw you some curveballs sometimes. It's all good. It's totally all good. Okay. All right. Well, I love you guys. I will talk to you again next week. And just a reminder, the Equipped Parent is happening April 14th. I would love to see you there. Link is in the show notes, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.